The lamps glowed softly in Sindbad's hall, and the night air from the Tigris carried the scent of jasmine through the open windows. The porter sat cross-legged before his host, eyes wide with wonder. Sindbad the Sailor poured a measure of wine into the porter's cup and said, smiling faintly, "My friend, you have heard of my first 4 voyages, of storms, monsters, and tombs of the dead. Yet still the sea called to me. Man's heart is a vessel easily filled with forgetfulness, and I swore once more to tempt the ocean for the sake of trade and discovery. I gathered fine goods and joined a merchant ship bound for far islands. For many days we sailed beneath fair winds, our holds filled with wealth and our hearts with ease. Then one morning, as the dawn broke, the sea grew strangely calm. The air was thick and still, and the captain, peering from the masthead, cried out, "Land ho!" We steered toward it and dropped anchor beside a green island bright with trees and streams. Birds of every color filled the air with their cries, and the scent of blossoms drifted across the shore. The sailors, eager to cook and rest, went ashore with pots and provisions, laughing like men released from the sea's prison. I remained behind to write in my ledger, but when I raised my eyes, I saw them gathered around something vast and white that gleamed in the sun. A dome so large that 10 men could stand upon it. My heart sank, for I knew it at once. I cried, "In God's name, beware. That is no stone, but the egg of the roc, the bird of legend whose wings blot out the sun." They only laughed and mocked my fear. One struck the shell with an axe, and it cracked like marble. From within came a cry, a living thing, a chick larger than a cow, covered in soft white down and trembling in the light. The men fell upon it with their knives, slew it where it lay, and kindled a fire. The smell of roasting flesh spread across the shore, rich and heavy. They tore strips of meat and feasted greedily, boasting that they would bring a piece of the roc itself home as proof of their courage. I sat apart, my heart heavy with dread, for I knew what doom they had called upon us. The sky began to dim. At first we thought it a passing cloud, but the light faded until the very day seemed to die. 2 vast shadows swept across the sea, and the wind rose with a voice like thunder. Then we saw them, 2 Rocs descending from the heavens, their wings spanning the horizon, their cries echoing through the world. When they beheld the broken shell and the smoke of the fire, their screams shook the mountains. They circled above us like storms made flesh, their wings churning the sea to foam. Then they soared away toward the mountains, vanishing into the darkening sky. We trembled and hurried to the ship, setting the sails with shaking hands. None spoke a word. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, and I felt in my bones that the wrath of the Rocs was not yet spent. Their vengeance was swift and terrible. The wind freshened behind us as we fled the island, our sails straining with terror rather than hope. None dared speak. Even the sea seemed to wait. Then, from far astern, came a cry that froze the blood in our veins, a shriek vast enough to shake the heavens. We turned and saw them, the 2 Rocs returning from the mountains, their wings beating against the clouds, the light of the sun flashing on their feathers like blades of bronze. Between their talons, each bore a single boulder, greater than any ship's hull, torn perhaps from the peaks themselves. Their eyes burned red with wrath. "Down! Down!" shouted the captain, but our voices were lost in the wind. The rocks circled high above us, their shadows spreading across the waves until day itself seemed swallowed. Then the first stooped from the clouds and loosed its burden. The mountain of stone fell into the sea before our bow. The waters leapt sky high, bursting over us with such force that our masts bent and the timbers groaned. Before we could recover, the second rock cried out, a sound like 1,000 storms, and hurled its stone straight upon us. The world split open. Wood shattered, iron screamed, and men were flung into the air like leaves in a gale. The ship broke apart in an instant. The sea closed over her and all within. I clung to a broken spar, half blinded by foam, the roar of the rocks echoing above me. Around me floated wreckage and the lifeless bodies of my companions. I drifted alone, beaten by wave and wind, my limbs weak, my heart empty of strength. The sky cleared at last, and the monsters were gone, their vengeance sated. All that remained was the wide, pitiless sea. Thus did I escape by the narrowest mercy, carried upon a single plank toward whatever fate awaited me next. All that night and through the next day, I drifted upon the wreckage, clinging to a plank that rose and fell with every wave. The salt burned my eyes, and the sun beat upon my head until my thoughts swam like the sea itself. Once or twice I glimpsed the bodies of my shipmates drifting past, faces pale, limbs spread like broken dolls, and I turned my eyes away. Hunger gnawed at me, thirst scalded my throat, and my skin cracked beneath the salt. When the second night came, I thought my life would end there, upon that endless water. But at dawn, through a veil of mist, I saw a line of green rising from the waves. Hope stirred within me like a spark in ashes. With the last of my strength, I paddled toward it. The sea at last gave me up to the shore. I collapsed upon the sand and lay there for a long while between waking and dream. When I could move again, I crawled inland and found a stream running clear among fruit trees. I drank deeply, washed the salt from my wounds, and ate until strength returned to my limbs. I gave thanks to the merciful who delivers the drowning from the deep. Yet even in that peace, a strange unease crept over me. The island was too still. No sound of birds, no wind in the trees, only the murmuring of water. It was then that I saw him. Across the stream stood an old man, tall and gaunt, his skin gray as driftwood, his beard white as sea foam. He leaned upon a twisted staff and beckoned to me without a word. Thinking him feeble and in need of help, I rose and waded toward him. When I reached him, he pointed to his back, as if asking to be carried across. Out of pity, I lifted him upon my shoulders and stepped into the water. But when we reached the middle, he tightened his legs around my neck like iron rings. I gasped and tried to pull free, but his grip was merciless. His laughter, low, dry, and cold, filled my ears, and I knew then that I had taken upon me no man, but a demon from the sea. Thus began the darkest trial of that voyage. One afternoon, as he drove me toward the stream again, I glimpsed our reflection in the water. My own face was hollow and sunburned, but his had twisted into something monstrous. His grin revealed sharp teeth, and his shadow bent the other way from mine. He saw it too and turned his face from the light, snarling. In that moment I knew, even the sea demon fears his own reflection. That night I gathered grapes from the vine, crushed them in a hollow gourd, and let the juice ferment beneath the sun. After days, it turned red and fragrant. I drank, and warmth spread through my limbs. The old fiend saw me and gestured greedily for a share. I handed him the gourd, and he drank deeply. Soon his voice slurred, his grip weakened, and he began to sway. His laughter turned foolish, his eyes dimmed, and his head lolled heavy upon my shoulder. I felt his legs loosen, and with all my strength, I threw him from my back. He fell to the ground, shrieking in a voice that was no longer human. His limbs twisted, his face melted like smoke, and for an instant I saw his true shape, a black, formless creature writhing in the dust. I seized a stone and struck him until he lay still. The air grew suddenly pure. I fell to my knees and gave thanks to the Almighty who had delivered me from that accursed torment. I wandered the island and soon found a group of sailors who had come to draw fresh water. When they heard my tale, they marveled and said, "By God, you have slain the demon of the island. Many have perished beneath his curse." They took me aboard their ship and treated me kindly. After some days, we reached another land, where the captain said, "These trees bear coconuts, but apes dwell among them in multitudes. If a man climbs to pick fruit, they stone him until he dies." So we filled our baskets with pebbles and threw them at the apes. Enraged, the creatures hurled down the coconuts upon us. We gathered the fallen fruit by the hundreds and loaded them onto the ship. Thus we gained great profit without risk. From there we sailed to another land whose people dive for pearls. They descended into the depths with stones tied to their feet and emerged bearing oysters that held treasures of the sea. The captain and I traded the coconuts we had gathered from the Island of Apes for these pearls and other fine goods. The islanders prized the fruit greatly, for in their country it was rare, and thus we gained great profit from what had cost us nothing. At last we turned homeward. The sea was calm, the sky gentle, and soon we reached Basra, then Baghdad. I entered my house, and my servants and friends rejoiced at my return. I gave alms to the poor and feasted my companions, praising the merciful who saves his servants from devils and from the sea alike. Yet even now, when I close my eyes, I see that reflection, my face bent beneath the shadow of the demon. It taught me that mercy without wisdom can be a trap, and that not every cry for help comes from the innocent. So I vowed again to stay upon the land, though in my heart I knew the vow would fade. For the sea, with all its terror, still calls the soul it has once claimed. Sindbad fell silent. The porter bowed and said, "Master, each voyage brings you nearer to death, yet you rise again by faith and cunning. Truly, gratitude is the anchor of the heart." Sindbad smiled. "Come again tomorrow, my friend," he said, "and I shall tell you of my sixth voyage, when storms, betrayal, and the fury of kings tested my spirit more than all before." And so ended the fifth voyage of Sindbad the Sailor, a tale of demons and deliverance, wisdom and endurance. Subscribe for more timeless stories from around the world, new adventures every week.